Show and Forte with Il Miracolo. The field is in the stretch in the Belmont Stakes, and Arcangelo has now taken over. Arcangelo is in front. National Treasure back running in second. Then Hit Show, Tappa Trice, Forte, and Angel of Empire. It is Arcangelo with the lead. Arcangelo in front, trying to hold on for the final 50 yards, and it's Arcangelo to win the Test of the Champion. It is Arcangelo, and it is a monumental victory for trainer Jenna Antonucci. And what a month for jockey Javier Castellano. He won his first Derby with Mage. He wins his first Belmont Stakes with Arcangelo.
So that was the great John Embrial with the call of Saturday's 155th Belmont Stakes. An upset, Mr. Joe Bianca, and a pretty great story. And that is sort of, downplaying how special a moment in race it was with Jenna Antonucci and Arcangelo. And we'll talk a lot about it, getting the win in the Belmont.
Yeah, I'm glad you came around to the Arcangelo side instead of Arcangelo, because you had me saying Arcangelo to people on Saturday, and then they came back to me. It was like, no, it's Arcangelo.
I think Arcangelo sounds better, actually, but listening to the Peter Pan replay, I was like, I kind of just blew it on the podcast that we did. Oh well, but Arcangelo with the victory in the Belmont. Hope everybody had a great Belmont weekend. I mean, Saturday in a lot of respects. Had a number of gigantic efforts, and certainly in terms of just bookending the Triple Crown, we had two really nice stories and much needed stories of a feel good nature. First with the Mage Camp, first Saturday in May at Churchill, and then of course coming to the Arcangelo Camp in the Belmont Stakes, the Test of the Champion, as Johnny I said on Saturday. Joe and I, and it's Jason, by the way, Jason Blewitt, Joe Bianca, and glad you're with us, everybody, on this edition, this post-Belmont Day edition of WPT in 30. Before we get to the action, though, we've got a little, and I do mean a little, availability left on the Street Sense Colt. And here's a video of him, in fact, his Breeze video over in the Arcana sale on turf. I mean, he looks like a literal lawnmower. He's got a really nice pedigree. And I got to tell you, Joe, the video of Dale Romans, his trainer, picking him up from the quarantine barn on Saturday with Jeff Lifson was pretty great, and really nice physical on this horse.
Yeah, I mean, he looks great. We talked about this before, but I think the way that they train the horses up to the Arcana sale and up to those Breeze Up sales in France and in Europe, they have a lot of fitness, maybe more so even than the 2-year-old sales here in America. There's a lot of bottom underneath them, a lot of foundation. So, you don't want to make any promises. We'll see how he trains in the first couple of weeks with Dale, but you would think that he would be probably a little bit closer to the races than maybe a 2-year-old that we bought stateside. He's got that dual surface versatility potentially that we were talking about. And yeah, no reason not to get excited, especially with Dale at the helm.
Really pretty intelligent eye on him. You could see the power when you got that side angle. And Jeff even, commented a big sort of, robust hip, and seems to have the power and the balance. And we're excited to have him in the family for sure. And if you're on the fence or you've been thinking about, and I know quite a few people that I've dealt with have looked at this horse. Again, I don't think he could do any better than that beautiful Street Sense colt. However, we had a Son of Arrogate get it done in the Belmont, and a rail skimming, ground saving trip ride, Joe, with Javier Castellano aboard Arcangelo. We'll throw to the Belmont, in fact, around the far turn, right around the 3/8 pole. And it was the Preakness winner, National Treasure, on the lead. You had Angel of Empire and Tappa Trice and Forte towards the outside, and Javier just rode that white rail to victory there at Arcangelo.
No, that was a great ride. And I love watching Javier ride too, because he's so quiet. He's not one of these riders that's whipping and pumping and almost falling off the horse. Just very efficient movements on him. And he stayed confident the whole way. And got that great trip. It was really interesting turning for home. I thought that he and National Treasure were going to kind of hook up and have that stretch duel, but he was able to put National Treasure away very quickly, and then was able to hold off a slew of closers. Had that phalanx of closers coming after him late, and he found the wire first. What a great story it was. Like you were saying earlier, we really kind of needed that in this Triple Crown season that's been overshadowed by a lot of negativity and a lot of tragedy, unfortunately, to have that kind of, bookend to the Triple Crown, with Jenna Antonucci obviously becoming the first female trainer, not just to win the Belmont, to win any Triple Crown race, really made you feel good. It was a great winner's circle scene. Everybody was happy for her. Couldn't beat it. You couldn't beat it as far as results that make you feel good and make you, happy to be involved and excited to be involved in racing, because it has been an up and down spring, Jay.
Oh, it most certainly has. That was something, and clearly it needed no touching upon, but something we brought up on our pre-Belmont discussion late last week. Just even with me, I think I watched the Derby replay just once instead of usually like 25, 30 times. But Belmont was a good race, a very happy ending, and a good call by you. You really gave, I know Hit Show may have been, I guess, your top pick, but you really gave sort of a two-fisted explanation and dissertation why Arcangelo deserved to be taken seriously off that Peter Pan victory. And him getting it done really sets up clearly the second half of the season. It should be interesting. I was thinking this morning, sort of putting the rundown together for our podcast today, Joe, thinking about, wow, the Travers could come up like a dream race. If you get Mage, you get Arcangelo, you've got, I don't think National Treasure is very good, even though he won the Preakness, but who knows? He could be in there. And there's a few other horses, certainly a horse like Disarm that won the Matt Win, Forte, the Pletcher horses. We hope to have Signator, who knows? Maybe Javier won't be riding Major Arcangelo in the Travers. He'll be riding Signator. We'll see. But yeah, the Travers could be a really, really great race, obviously. My point is, Joe, there's clearly no clear-cut leader in this 3-year-old crop.
Definitely. And that's where you get the most exciting, most intriguing fields in these 3-year-old races. Because if there's one horse everybody's running away from, you get a lot of 5 and 6 horse fields. When it's wide open like this, and the division and the championship are pretty much up for grabs with only about 5 or so months, a little less than 5 months of major racing to go, that's where you get the most excitement and the best betting fields as well. And this is mostly a handicapping podcast. I can't wait to see the field sizes that we get this summer in the 3-year-old stakes.
Definitely. Last word on the Belmont goes to you, Joe. We understand Jenna and the Arcangelo camp. Anybody else catch your eye? For me, it was Forte, and clearly I was not alone in that just sort of, I guess, summation regarding his effort off of a really, for the Belmont anyway, an unprecedented 10-week, 70-day layoff. He ran very well, but do you have any other thoughts regarding one of the also-rans?
No, I mean, I agree with you that I think Forte ran a really big race. It's kind of hard to separate all those horses for second, third, and fourth, but I think he covered the most ground out of everybody. The only other point I would make is how much it warms my heart to see Arrogate with another big time winner, because he was a stallion that I thought had immense potential. Obviously, was very hyped going into his stallion career, and unfortunately died, I believe, in his 3rd season at stud. So he's only had a couple of crops, and just look at the horses that he's had, a bunch of grade 1 winners. Cave Rock comes to mind, and Tell Me No Lies last year, winning grade 1s, Secret Oath as well. And just for Arcangelo's
the better name, dude. I'm sorry. It sounds better. I'm never going to stop saying that.
No, go ahead. I support you and everything that you do. But
I appreciate it.
That really helped out for me too, because I was such a huge fan of Arrogate, and it's nice to see him posthumously getting his just due as a terrific, terrific stallion.
Of course, trained by Bob Baffert, won the inaugural Pegasus, was a Breeders' Cup Classic winner. His Dubai World Cup was one of the most outrageous, singular, and it wasn't a singular type career with him, and a former Travers winner too. The string of races from pretty much the Travers through the Dubai World Cup that he put together. So that would have been 2016 through kind of late March, early April of 2017, just on another planet. He was trained by Bob Baffert, obviously, as was Justify, who may stake his claim to having certainly in terms of raw talent, he's near the top of the class. But could you make the argument, Joe, as we go to the Woody Stevens and the number 3 Arabian Lion, who pulled basically a pocket, classic textbook trip and ride as we go to the replay with Johnny V and the Woody Stevens? I mean, could this horse be the best 3-year-old in training? What do you think off a 109 buyer in the Woody?
Yeah, no, I mean, and you and I talked about this, and we were both kind of against him in this race. Don't usually love those front runners who get easy leads going 2 turns, cutting back to 1 turn, but he showed that he doesn't need the lead. He can sit off of it just fine and finish up, as strong as you can possibly finish up. Like you said, 109 buyer. I thought Drew's Gold ran a really, really good race in defeat, kind of making that first move and just holding on for second late. He's a really nice horse going forward. And I think that this division, the 3-year-old sprinter division, might benefit now from a Arabian Lion. You would think stretching back out maybe for the Haskell and the Travers, because he looked like a man among boys on Saturday.
He absolutely did. Now, let's see here. I just realized here that I wasn't sharing my screen. Not a big deal. Let's go to notability here. And we've got Arabian Lion. We've also got a quick DRF rundown. I like that Dan Illman in the forum. This was started by Mike Watchmaker. I mean, geez, probably close to 25 years ago. It's no longer in the print edition of the paper, but I do like that the forum's got their sort of weekly divisional rankings. And as we touched upon, Joe, I mean, recapping the Belmont second half of the season in terms of that race for the Eclipse Award, as we look at Dan's top 10 ranking, and these will be updated on Wednesday. So this is sort of pre-Belmont Stakes, but it's obviously just super wide open in this division.
Yeah, definitely. And if you have a 3-year-old that might not necessarily have black type at this point, plenty of opportunities to get it going forward. I think about the horse that ran second, whose name is slipping my mind right now, but the horse who ran a close second to Arcangelo in the Peter Pan, the Brad Cox horse who ran.
Oh, Bishop's Bay. Yeah. He's talented too.
I mean, he's got a war chest of talented 3-year-olds. So yeah, if you got a horse that you think has talent, our Cagliostro comes to mind with Cherie DeVoe. He's a horse that can come alive and make some noise in the second half of the season. You mentioned Signator as well, but yeah, it's really exciting and I think fertile ground for the rest of the 3-year-old season. That if you have a talented horse, take a shot, because this thing is up for grabs.
As is maybe the race for the second best older horse in training. Of course, Cody's Wish, although he's yet to win, it's sort of a classic, let's just say 2-turn distance in a race that matters. It's hard to argue with him in a pretty lean older horse / handicap division at this point of the season, but it's hard to argue as we shift into the sort of Hall of Fame trainer William I. Mott segment of the West Point podcast in 30. We've got Cody's Wish, who got the 112 buyer, just rolling home in the Metropolitan Handicap on Saturday. Another, again, you look at Jenna and Arcangelo and that whole thing with the Belmont. This is another great story. And I got to think, Joe, I know they're like, we'll Whitney will nominate, blah, 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 blah. Don't you have to be pointing this horse now for the Whitney Handicap at Saratoga off what he did Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, the way he finishes, Belmont obviously knows better than we do how far he really wants to go. But the way he finishes these races, it's not like he's a speed horse and he's going out and setting these blazing fractions and just kind of holding on late. Because then, in that scenario, you want to keep him at 7 or 8 furlongs. He just finishes like a freight train, looped the field on Saturday, looked like a winner every step of the way. I desperately needed White Abario to get second. I don't know how he didn't go by Zandon and that last 16th of a mile. That was a rough beat for me. But yeah, everybody was running for second money because Cody's Wish, and he makes his own trip. He doesn't have to get out of the gate fast. He doesn't necessarily need a super fast pace. He's just going to run his race. And so far, his race is so much better than everybody in this division that, yeah, I would love to see him in the Whitney. I thought about it at the beginning of the year, when Art Collector won the Pegasus. No disrespect to Art Collector, who's a nice little horse. But when he won the Pegasus, the beginning of the year, I was like, this division is ripe for the picking. And yeah, I agree with you that I think if you have to at least entertain the idea of stretching Cody's Wish out because of the state of the older horse handicap division.
I say he goes Whitney handicap in early August, and he's under even money, even though he does have a little bit of a distance question. I mean, there's just not a whole lot out there. And in a very deep year, he'd be clearly a top 3 older horse in training. I mean, even if Flightline and some of those horses like Olympiad, it was also trained by Belmont, and a few of the others that were, around last year in the handicap division, Cody's Wish is at that level. He's not Flightline, of course, and I say that with peace and love, but a tremendous racehorse. Again, monster buyer, and great to see Belmont. That was another thing, Joe, going in as sort of like a subplot this Saturday. When Dave Grenning reported it in his Met Mile advance, I don't know. I'm sure I knew it, but I guess I kind of forgot. And it's almost hard to believe that Belmont had never won the Met Mile before. So great to see him do it, obviously, with a horse like Cody's Wish and fill in that blank spot on the resume. Now he's got an embarrassment of riches. Joe, you just mentioned the war chest as far as Brad Cox and having a very, very, very deep bench of 3-year-olds. I mean, Belmont having the Godolphin horse Cody's Wish, and then also having the Juddmonte homebred, or I should say the Juddmonte purchase, a near 7-figure yearling purchase, who's now 5 in Elite Power. It's an embarrassment of riches for him. This was a race, I think, going in, a lot of us were anxious to see what the number 5 Strobe was going to do. Cody's Wish was the number 4, and he just obliterated the field in the True North. I mean, this was kind of like a paid public workout for him.
Yeah, Elite Power was unbelievable in that race. And yeah, I think that's another argument for running Cody's Wish in the Whitney, because you would think that otherwise both of those horses would be pointing for the forego. He obviously doesn't want to run them against each other. And this horse has just become such a dynamite sprinter, and a very similar horse in that doesn't matter what the pace is. He just comes with his run and just blows the competition away. I mentioned it on the last podcast with you that he ran a -5.5 on the Thoroughbreds numbers in the Riyadh Dirt Sprint. I didn't see the number he got yet for Saturday's race, but man, he just ran by those horses like they were standing still. He's a beautiful horse to look at, just an absolutely super impressive physical. And I just love that they brought both of these horses back as 5-year-olds, because it's been something that's plagued the game for a little bit. A horse wins a grade 1 race or 2, and then they're off to the stallion barn. They brought both of these horses back at 5, and they're both running at the top of their game, and I expect them to continue to do so the rest of the year. And yeah, Belmont has to be pinching himself walking past those 2 horses in the shed row every morning.
No doubt. And classic horsemanship too. And it's not like, and I say that, I mean, when you consider the camp and operation and barn you're dealing with both Cody's and of course Elite Power, but neither one of these horses, and they both have monster pedigrees. They're both by Curlin from top outfits, Godolphin and Juddmonte. I mean, 2 globally dominating powers. I love both of them, but it's not like, Joe, that's the funny thing in a way, with them both being 5-year-olds. That's amazing. But, neither one of these horses set the world on fire in their debuts. In fact, they both needed multiple chances to finally break their maiden and sort of break through. And it underscores you got to be patient. And it's not only about winning first out, it's about a career with a guy like Belmont. And we're all very anxious to see what's going to happen the remainder of the year, both with Cody's Wish and Elite Power. Speaking of first, my friend, let's jump over to the turf course. And although the American older grass horse division is on the lean side as well, not to be too negative on things, it was the first Manhattan victory. My favorite. I said this on, the pre-Belmont podcast we taped. Manhattan will always be my favorite grass race in the country. And Todd Pletcher, who years ago, I couldn't remember. I'm like, did he win that race with Balto Star? But no, Todd had never won the Manhattan. And although I thought Ottoman Fleet was going to make more of a race of it against Up to the Mark than he was capable of doing, it was Up to the Mark. I mean, how'd you like that finish and turn a foot off the far turn with him?
That was incredible. The only question was whether he could duplicate the race he ran in the Turf Classic, going an extra eighth of a mile, and he answered those questions with flying colors. It's interesting to see what he'll do going forward, whether he points to the Breeders' Cup Turf or tries to turn back and run in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I would go to the Turf with him because there's nothing in his running style or in his past performances that suggests he's not going to be better going longer. And I just think, you look at the Maker's Mark Mile, he ran a great race, but he was just too far out of it to conceivably win that race against a really sharp horse. And yeah, he was unbelievable on Saturday. You just don't see horses blow the doors off of Charlie Appleby runners like that. It's just so funny to say, like, Charlie Appleby's been such a mainstay in America for so long, but he really has ruled the roost for the last couple of years with these turf horses, and Up to the Mark just ate their lunch. And it had to be a satisfying win for Rapoli and Pletcher. And yeah, I mean, what a racehorse. And it's nice to have him in the turf division, because like you said, where else do you go if you want a turf horse to really grab onto in America right now?
No, it's Up to the Mark. I mean, hands down, in terms of a stateside American-based grass horse, he's number one from east to west and west to east. I'm with you. I'll be curious, because I would point to the Breeders' Cup Turf as his long-range goal. And this was something I didn't ask Mike. We were texting a little bit Saturday night. Do you go Arlington Million with him at 1.25 miles, and Mike's such a New York guy, and of course everybody loves to win and even race at Saratoga, and Mike is no exception. He loves Saratoga. Do you just keep him on this circuit and stretch out from the 1.25 miles, and you go immediately to the 1.5 miles on the Sword Dancer? It will be interesting to see, but a serious racehorse who was really at a crossroads. I mean, right around Pegasus Day, when we were getting the Eclipse Award for Horse of the Year with Flightline, a couple of days later, this horse was on the grass on that Pegasus undercard, and the rest was history. Why don't we backtrack, Joe, real fast? And I know this might be a painful revisit to Friday's Acorn Day, and I was, happy to see the smoke cleared out of New York. You were able to breathe easy, and well, maybe you weren't breathing so easy at the end of the Acorn. This was a great race, though, and I know it was a tough loss for you, and you were super bullish on Darth Vader, who, by the way, as we go to the stretch run here, she's the one. You've got Pretty Mischievous, the number 6, and Money's Gold, who actually turned for home and set the pace, and turned for home still on the lead, was the 5. We were against her, didn't think she could go the distance. She couldn't. A tough loss, Joe, in the Darth Vader camp and the Joe Bianca camp, but still, it really was a great horse race.
Yeah, no, it was a great stretch duel. The thing that killed me was, I know you've experienced this a bunch too, when Pretty Mischievous went by her, like around the 8th pole, and at that point, I'm like resigned myself, like, okay, the horse is going to run second. And then the horse fights back along the inside and almost gets the nose down, like just can't quite get back in front. Those are even worse. Those are the worst beats when you're like, okay, I'm going to run second. Oh, wait. Oh, I ran second still.
And she just missed. Oh, you know what? It was similar to Arcangelo and Bishop's Bay. Only, again, Arcangelo was making that outside run in the Peter Pan. It looked like Bishop's Bay was coming back and was going to win. And then, boom, you got that late surge from Arcangelo. I'm with you.
Yeah,
I'm with you. 3-year-old filly division, much like the 3-year-old Colts. Although Pretty Mischievous, would you agree, is the leader off her Kentucky Oaks and Acorn? Dude, she's got no wiggle room in this division. I mean, I still think the race to an Eclipse Award is wide open.
I agree. I mean, she's clearly the favorite at this moment. She's got the 2 big grade 1 races. I love seeing her come back in the Acorn instead of Brendan Walsh just sitting on her until the summer.
Sure.
She only got a 96 buyer. So I think there's got to be some fillies out there that can run a little bit faster than that. But it was good to see her bounce back. Not that it was a super short turnaround, but it was good to see her off of the huge effort in the Oaks. Like, I know she only got a 92 buyer or 95 buyer or something in there.
92. Yep.
Yeah, but she was wide around both turns, so I think it was a better effort than that figure would indicate. But yeah, I mean, they put on a show in the stretch, and I just, as much as that beat hurt me, I liked seeing Pretty Mischievous come back and be able to run that big race again. And Brendan Walsh has had an unbelievable year. But yeah, your point is taken that there's, even though on paper with the multiple grade 1 wins, she's the leader in the clubhouse for the Eclipse Award. There's got to be a lot of people looking at that race with maybe later developing 3-year-old fillies licking their chops, saying, I can get this filly in the second half of the year.
Without a doubt, including, again, I don't know about an Eclipse Award, but I wouldn't be worried or afraid if you're clearly in the camp of the one Dorth Vader running back against Pretty Mischievous. I'll be curious. And clearly this has been a filly, you talk about running often. I mean, she's run 4 times this year and 9 times in her career since last August down in my neck of the woods at Gulfstream Park. Be curious if they just wheel her back in the Mother Goose, who goes where. For Money's Gold, she's obviously very talented, Joe. But you would imagine the new target for her and, bullseye will be that Grade 1 test at Saratoga now.
Definitely. And she's the horse to beat in there. Obviously super early, but it was worth a shot with a horse that fast, that talented. It was worth a shot to try to stretch her out. But yeah, after she couldn't get it done, going a 1-turn mile and a 16th, I would guess and assume that her 2-turn days doesn't have any 2-turn dates in her future. I think she still is an immensely talented filly. But yeah, that's it for routing for Money's Gold, I think, for the rest of her career.
Yeah, you're probably right there. Looking very much forward to the Prioress and the test. I think the 3-year-old filly dirt sprinters are very solid, led, of course, by Red Carpet Ready, who would have won the rescheduled Jersey Girl on Sunday with Chocolate Gelato not really showing up, getting that. Wasn't a bad ride, but with her going inside, she was flat. Aunt Becca for Cherie just didn't show up with her A game. I think Red Carpet Ready probably would have won that race from my house in Florida to yours in Brooklyn. But you've got Money's Gold turning back, Red Carpet Ready. We've got Vava. It's a pretty deep field, or I should say division. And very much like Joe, looking forward to Saratoga with the Prioress and the test, and we can see who's best heading into the fall with the 3-year-old dirt filly sprinters. Turf sprinters, dirt sprinters. Turf sprinters in general, Joe, male or female, with me generally as a division, I'm not too amped about. Caravel is the exception, though. Another big win for your Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint winner who didn't go 5, didn't go 5.5, had to go 6 in the Grade 1 Jaipur, just refused to let anybody by.
Yeah, it was a great ride and a great trip. And that was one of those horses that, like I said last time, when I initially came into the race, not a fan and thinking about betting against her. But then you looked at the field and just how little speed there was. She kind of had it her own way, even though she wasn't on the lead per se. Big run from Big Invasion, I think, to almost get her. Casa Creed, I thought, ran his race. That I didn't hit it, so this isn't red boarding or anything. That was the easiest trifecta of the whole weekend, that 12, 10, 11 try, because, those were the main 3 horses. Yep. And yeah, Caravel is just nails. She just shows up every single time, and she doesn't need any particular trip. Like, she's obviously better on the lead or close to the lead, but we've seen her in the past be able to make that closing run. She's just an awesome horse, and has been for several years now. And I can't wait to see her keep going.
Yeah, she was good with her prior connections, but getting into Brad Cox's barn has just obviously brought her to a new level. And we definitely wanted to include Caravel, just again with a mare like her taking down the boys in a big and very important for that division Grade 1 on Belmont Day. Absolutely deserves some inclusion and some props here and some love on this Belmont Stakes recap. We will, in fact, jump forward a day, my friend. And it was a busy one, at least for you, the great Tom Bellhouse, the boss man, Terry Finley. I saw all 3 of you guys were at Belmont on Sunday afternoon. And West Point had 2 turf fillies in, both trained by Christophe Comant. Parnack got it done, and it was great. And as we go to her race, she's the 2 horse here in our colors, the gold and black. What a ride here from Flavien Prat. I mean, just a beautiful textbook turf ride. And it was really great to see her, Joe, not only, of course, winning, but a lot of us had wanted to see, even last year, her stretch out, and for her to go 1 mile and 3 furlongs. I couldn't wipe the smile off my face the rest of the day.
Yeah, no, and it was a big pick me up after what happened in the first race. Obviously, they had the horse go down at Belmont, so that was that was a rough thing to happen, and that definitely lifted our spirits back up. And yeah, I think there are certain people, there are definitely a certain amount of partners that wanted to see her stretch out. They were right. Christoph did a great job training her, and Flavien Prat, man, one of the things that he's great at is using the horse just enough coming out of the gate so that they get into a good position. You rarely ever see him get out of the gate and just let these horses drop so far out of it. Even going a long distance like that, he got her into a great spot in the pocket, a perfect inside out trip, and she really had that stretch kick to run down that horse. And yeah, I think this opens up a lot of options for her going forward, because the filly and mare turf marathon division is not usually something that a lot of trainers do as a first resort. It's something that, you have horses that are probably a little bit too slow to go a mile and a 16th. That division could be ripe for the picking for her. And I think she finally is getting to do what she really wants to do. And it was great. You got to love results like that too, Jay. It's always nice to win a race, but when you get up in the shadow of the wire like that, that feels really, really good.
Oh, it felt great. I was thrilled for Parnak and the partners that are in on her. And I got to tell you, man, at around the 3/16 pole, it looked to me like she made the run. And like for a couple of strides, it was, I said to my wife, because we watched it together, I'm like, oh, she's starting to flatten out. And then it was like, she got that second win and kept grinding away. This field, while decent, clearly not the kind of firepower, even though this is kind of not an afterthought division. But, Chad Brown, of course, I'm sure has a handful of fillies that she could potentially be facing, probably more than a handful of fillies. The water's going to get deeper, but a very nice step forward for Parnak, who got an 86 buyer, career best effort out of her. I think a lot of us feel there's still another level or two she can get to, or we're hopeful and realistic that there's more in the tank there. So congrats to her with the win. Now, the first race was it was tough to watch yesterday. Sunday's first, that would have been June the 11th at Belmont. Not going to pull the replay here for 14-0, and condolences to the connections of the filly that went down. Kind of clearly changed the race. I was happy though that 14-0 got a career best number for what that's worth, Joe. She got an 82 buyer, and see, my takeaway was, she's healthy. The Comanche got her sound off that year and a half layoff. And it did seem like she was able to, because she's such a bulldog when she trains in the morning, she was able to at least, rate, I thought, pretty comfortably. So there were some positives I took away. I'm wondering how you felt about her race on Sunday at Belmont.
No, for sure. I honestly thought, turning for home, she was going to be beaten like 5 or 6 lengths. And even at the 8th pole, I thought she was going to back up, but she really put her head down and fought between horses down the stretch. She was only beaten a length and a half, even though she ran 4th, and for a horse that like her had such a long layoff, she was off for 623 days from her August 2021 debut to her first race off the layoff May 7th at Belmont. She moved forward from a 74 to an 82 buyer. Obviously you would have liked to see her win, but I thought realistically going into the race, if she moves forward significantly off that race, it's something to build on going forward. I think the interesting discussion with her is what distance to put her at to keep her shorter or go a bit longer. I was, listening to Christoph and Javier talk about her after the race. Javier thinks that 7 furlongs hits her right between the eyes. She was going a mile this time, and Christoph was saying that we kind of got to get another race in for her the rest of the Belmont meet, because then after that at Saratoga, You're pretty much going a mile and a 16th or 5.5 furlongs. And neither of those really might be her ball game, even though she did win a mile and a 16th first time out. But I thought she fought really well. And I think 82 buyer, second off of that extremely long layoff, is good foundation going forward. And I'm excited to see what she does third time back.
I'm with you with 14-0. It's got the great name named by Ed Barker. And with Frankel, her sire, having gone a perfect 14 for 14. Now we'll wrap things up with King's Ovation. Some severe weather hit Ellis Park, the pea patch, I guess, relatively early on Sunday, and that delayed some of the races. And again, I'm not going to, sit here and lie and say I was dialed into Ellis Park all day on June the 11th. When I threw on the preceding race, though, because I wanted to watch the Matt win with Disarm and Verifying, knocking heads in there, and Disarm narrowly beat Verifying, I was like, wow, that track is really sloppy. So King's Ovation, we've got a couple of different looks here. He's the number 7 horse. The head on, and we'll go to that first. I don't know why Ellis Park has to have that just good night banner or graphic that fills up most of the screen, but we saw the slow start. And I remember thinking, Joe, down the backside, I'm like, oh man, this is not the trip King's Ovation wants. But to his credit, passed some horses, and with a lot of adversity with the track and everything else, ran a pretty decent race. I'd say well out of his comfort zone. That was a good effort out of him, don't you think, Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, when you factor in the slow start and the slop and a big field trying to navigate through that, I think he ran about as well as you could have expected, considering the circumstances. And yeah, don't get me started, Jay, on the Ellis Park TV presentation, because it's so hard to follow races there. And it's not something I noticed really until their racing product got way better. And now obviously with the Churchill at Ellis meet, they have a tremendous product, as they will throughout the summer, but they got to figure something out, because it's a task to watch races there sometimes. But yeah, I think King's Ovation, coming off of those 2 big races, might be a little dirtied up in the form next time in terms of getting a price on him. But I think he ran well enough to suggest that he's still in good form.
I'll be curious. Ellis this summer, you bring in the Saratoga, look for a starter allowance. If they run those on the dirt, the Saratoga condition book isn't out yet. But he's come back, to his credit. I mean, he had softer trips, but capitalized and did it going up in class, which is a credit to him in both April and then that 62.5 in May. Bigger field on Sunday. Wasn't a perfect trip by any means, given how close and that high cruising speed that he has and how close he wants to be on the pace. But a sneaky good effort out of Mr. King's Ovation. And that reminds me, Joe, just kind of looking ahead at what's on tap this week, depending upon when you're tuning into this edition of the West Point Thoroughbreds podcast, we've got a Tuesdays at 2 for partners with the Sultan of Louisville, the man himself, Dale Romans. Now, I just can't help myself. I've got to share a picture I took with Dale in his office the morning after the Derby. My wife, Christina, and I have a tradition. Day after the Derby, we go to Churchill Downs. It happened to be in a driving rainstorm about 5 weeks ago. But Dale had me crying. He was telling us stories in his office, about when he was a teenager going to Churchill Downs and what the infield in the 70s and 80s was like. You can only imagine, Joe, on Derby Day. I had like tears rolling down my face. But we'll have Dale on Tuesdays at 2 tomorrow. He'll talk about King's Ovation and a few of the 2-year-olds. And again, little room left on that Street Sense cult. But I'll tell you, Joe, maybe you don't know him as well as I've gotten to know him in my 2.5 years with the company. You will, though. There is no better. I mean, he's one of the all-time in my life great storytellers that I've ever met. You won't find a better ranking tour than Dale Romans.
Yeah, I mean, even just sitting with him at Carrabba's in Ocala, hearing him hold it in court was really entertaining and worth
amazing, right?
Yeah, no, he's great, and he lights up a room with his sense of humor for sure.
All right, so we'll have Dale Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday, June the 13th. I quickly looked at Atomic Blonde's race. We've got her going a mile and a furlong on Friday. I'm sure you'll be out at Belmont Park with our gray filly for Christophe Comont. She's obviously acquitted herself quite nicely in the United States. So looking forward to her. And for sure, Joe, I'm sure you're just as amped as I am to see her back in action and getting, I guess, some slight class relief too.
Yeah, definitely. And I think she's probably going to be odds on or thereabout in that race, 4 to 5, even money. I'm hoping we can get on a little streak here, because prior to Parnak's win, I hadn't been at the track as a West Point rep for a win since Empire Ride back in early February. So it had been a long time since I got into that winner's circle. And when I was there for Empire Ride, there were no partners there. So this was my first win with a group of partners, and it's a great group on Parnak. So I'm hoping we can keep it rolling, get on a little bit of a better streak here. And I think Atomic Blonde's got a big chance to do that on Friday.
And we definitely appreciate everybody tuning in. I mean, clearly we've got a decent amount of positive feedback from our Belmont Stakes podcast. And, I think, Joe, going forward, this is clearly going to be a regular podcast. I mean, I love working with you and doing these podcasts, and we both love talking about not only the game, but it raises, the emotion and the passion up, another notch or two, or maybe 20 notches when you're getting to talk about West Point horses. So this will be certainly a regular feature as we head into the summer with Saratoga and Del Mar, not too far off in the distant future, which is amazing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we finish each other's sentences, Jason. That's for Kevin Galvin, by the way. It was Kevin Galvin I hung out with a little bit on the weekend. He said he loves it.
My man.
But he thinks that we agree too much. So, we could go one or two ways. We could start beefing artificially, or we can go the other way and fall deeper in love. You tell me.
Well, we'll see. I'm a pretty lovable guy, actually, but we'll have to, we'll discuss, and who knows, there may be some topics we disagree on, for sure, but great time, my friend. Maybe we'll argue next time, and we'll sign off for Joe and myself. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. My cat almost just hit the stop record button. What are you doing, Mr. Jake? In fact, let's
minutes.
Let's see here. Stop share. Let's start video. There's my Jake right here.